So today I'm going to be doing a tutorial on audiobook recording, and it's the start of a trilogy. So the next tutorial I will be doing editing, and then the one after that I'll be doing the mastering. So what we're going to do is first we're going to record a little chunk today, and then in the next video we'll edit it, and then the video after that we'll master it. And that process will show you how to do an audiobook from start to finish, basically. Firstly, let's run through my setup. I have got a video on how to set up a template for ACX audiobooks, which I'll put a link to in the description. And this is the same template that I'm using today, but let's just run through it quickly before we get started. So first of all, my signal is coming in an aux input into Protools here. And I've got an EQ on that, which is the FabFilter Pro Q4. And what have we got going on here? Well, I've got a low cut filter on here. So that is cutting everything below 61 Hertz there, as you can see, with quite a steep slope. And I've got a few little bubbles here where I've taken out a few frequencies that are clearly knocking me off for some reason. And then here I've got a cut at around 5,680 Hertz, 5.6K, which is where I'm quite sibilant. So what I've done is I've swept along the frequency band to find that frequency by using this little bubble here. You have to drag it up. So you're boosting the frequency. I've got quite a narrow band selected, which you do by adjusting your Q here. So if you see here, I'm adjusting it and it's going wider, but we obviously want to get a narrow band because we're hunting down a particular sibilant frequency. So I can show you how I do that, but it's going to be a bit hissy, so apologies for that. And what I do is once I grab that little bobble, I boost the signal, and then I click on these little headphones here, and it solos the signal, and when you hear the horrible little whistle, that's probably the bit of the frequency that you need to cut. So let me just show you what I mean by that. I'm gonna be talking, but you won't be able to hear me because I'm soloing the frequency, but you'll hear the whistle. So I'm just going to cut that. It was around 5.7. That was where the whistle was most harsh. So yeah, that's a quick way to kind of sweep along the frequencies, and you can find the horrible harsh frequencies that you're looking for. So there we go. So that's my EQ there. Next, we've got that going down bus 37 here to our record track. And on my record track, I've got a compressor, but we'll be coming to that when we do the mastering phase. That's going to be off while we're recording. We don't need it on. Then that goes down something called a VO bus, which goes to my master channel down here, which is my mix bus channel down here. We've also got a track called room tone because my voice is being denoised before it gets to Pro Tools. So when we edit, we're going to have a load of sort of digital silence in between the edits, which we need to fill, just smooth over with a bit of room tone. So I've got a room tone clip here, and I drag that, put that on my room tone track. And then that will just kind of smooth everything over. But again, we'll be going through that when I do the mastering video. So on my mix bus channel, I've got a limiter, which is going to catch all the final peaks so that we don't go over the illegal level. And I've got a meter as well, which means we can monitor the volume levels and just make sure we're on track for the right spec that we're aiming for our audiobook. So there we go. And that's all going out the main output there for us to bounce down later. So without further ado, let's get into the recording bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a method called punch and roll, which means that say you cock something up halfway through a sentence, you don't have to go back to the beginning of the sentence, particularly if it's a long one. You can just play a bit in and then find a little drop-in point, and you can just punch in by pressing whatever key you've got assigned to your record button. So first of all, we need to check we're in quick punch mode. So I've got my record transport up here. I'm just going to right click on the record, and we are in quick punch. That is confirmed. So that's very important. And if you want to set up a keyboard shortcut for your record key, if you don't have a numeric keypad or you're using a MacBook or something like that, go to setup, keyboard shortcuts. There we go, I've done it already. If you put in record, you can see it comes up with all the options there. What have I got here? Record punch, there we go. Numerical keypad 3. You can see down the bottom here, fourth from the bottom. You double click on that and it says press new shortcut, and you can just program in any combination, any key, as long as it doesn't conflict with another shortcut that it's got although you can overwrite it. Also, you might want to do that for putting in a memory location as well, which I'm going to be doing a lot of as I go along. First of all, I mean, I normally start my session around 10:00. That's from my audio post days. So I'm just going to type that in my big counter here. And if we just zoom in to around 10:00, what I will do is I'll just spool back about 30 seconds, because what I do first, I will just record the opening credits and the closing credits just to get them out of the way. So these are just basically an introduction and a closing to the audiobook. So this book is called The Lost Harmonics, and it's by my narrator and pen name Dan Kelly. So I'm just going to record the opening and closing credits, which will be something like, "You're listening to The Lost Harmonics, written and read by Dan Kelly." And then for the closing, it'll be, "You've been listening to," and then and so on. So let's record those. And first of all, I'm going to put a marker in. So I'm just going to press enter, and I'm going to call this credits, so I know where they are in the session. Yeah, and let's record those. Here we go. You're listening to The Lost Harmonics, written and read by Dan Kelly. You've been listening to The Lost Harmonics, written and read by Dan Kelly. So there we go. We'll edit those when we do our edit video. So that's our credits. We're just going to leave those there for the moment. And we're going to go back to 10:00, and I'm going to put in another marker, and then I'm going to put in chapter 1 there. And what I'm also going to do is go up to our audio track, double click on the name, and then put in 1, so that everything we record turns up in our clip list as chapter 1. So if we do lose anything, we'll be able to find it relatively easily. So what we're going to do is I'm going to record maybe like a page or something like that, which we'll be editing in the next video. And I'll do loads of mistakes on purpose so that we can have loads of problems in the edit. That's my excuse for cocking it up anyway. And I'm just going to show you my process of what I do when I'm recording, when I come across characters and things like that. So yeah, let's just go for it and see what happens, shall we? So here we go. Chapter 1. The knackered doorbell wheezed out a barely coherent buzz, prompting Rick to look out the living room window. There was a clapped-out orange Mark I Escort parked at an odd angle across the drive. Fuck's sake, please be fucking normal. He cantered down the stairs 2 at a time and swung the communal door open. "Give us all your money," bellowed the dapper stranger in front of him. Okay, so we've got 2 characters here. We've got Rick, who says, "Fuck's sake, please be fucking normal." Fuck's sake, please be fucking normal. So he's a little bit nasally like that. So what I'll tend to do is I'll just read sort of a random sentence on this page, just in his voice, and then I'll name it Rick, and then we'll have that stashed as a clip in our clip list, which we can refer to as we go along in the book. So yeah, let's go. Right, Rick leapt back. Let's just read that sentence in his voice. Rick leapt back and banged his head on the shelf behind him as the man stepped back, his mischievous grin replaced by a horrified look. Right, so that's plenty of Rick for us to refer to. So we're just going to double click on that clip, name that Rick, and you can see that's turned up in our clip list there. So anytime we want to hear what Rick sounds like, we just grab Rick there and just plonk him in there, and we can just play it. Rick leapt back and banged his head, and there's Rick. And then the next one is a character called Harry. So I think he's just said something, hasn't he? "Give us all your money." Give us all your money. Right, so he's a bit deeper. So again, I'm going to read that sentence in Harry's voice. Rick leapt back and banged his head on the shelf behind him as the man stepped back, his mischievous grin replaced by a horrified look. And then double click on that, name that Harry. And then again, we've got Harry there in our clip list, so we can just grab that and plonk that on the timeline whenever we want to hear what Harry sounds like. So that's those 2. And yeah, let's just crack on, bellowed the dapper stranger in front of him. Right, so we're just going to go in after bellowed the dapper stranger in front of him. We're going to drop in for Rick leapt back. So I'm going to play that in, then I'm going to punch in after that. Here we go. Bellowed the dapper stranger in front of him. Rick leapt back and banged his head on the shelf behind him as the man stepped back, his mischievous grin replaced by a horrified look. Christ, sorry. I didn't mean to scare the shit out of you, the man said, stepping forward cautiously. Harry. He extended a hand. The guy was smart, wearing a long blue overcoat, designer sunglasses, ridiculously white teeth, and a pair of loafers that had no business being that pristine. He peered at Rick over his sunglasses, then removed them as Rick's brain caught up. No way. Hang on, you're Bradley Goodfellow, said Rick. Sometimes, replied Harry with a smile. Shit, sorry, I just wasn't expecting you. Neither was my mother, replied Harry. Rick snorted a chuckle, which made him dribble involuntarily. There we go. So there's my little first mistake. Let's just drop in after, replied Harry. Here we go. Replied Harry. Rick snorted a chuckle, which made him dribble involuntarily. There we go. I've done it again. So I did that on purpose because I wanted to show you how to drop in like in the middle of a sentence there. So instead of dropping in for the whole sentence, we can just go from Rick snorted a chuckle. So we can go after Rick snorted a chuckle, which made him dribble involuntarily. And we'll tighten that up in the edit once we get to the editing phase. But you can see I'm having trouble with the word involuntarily. So it's really good to be able to kind of just drop in halfway through a sentence so you don't have to keep doing the whole thing again and again and again. So here we go. Let's give it another go. And I'm going to drop in after Rick snorted a chuckle. Rick snorted a chuckle, which made him dribble involuntarily, which quite rightly caused a second or two of dead air before Harry took the reins of the conversation. Shall we? He said, gesturing to move inside. Shall we what? Look at the flat. Oh, fuck, yeah. Sorry, it's this way. Clearly. So, right, I've got those two voices mixed up there. So we're going to have to go back and do those again. So let's go back to shall we? And that's going to be in Harry's voice. So let's drop in after reins of the conversation. Shall we? And then we've got the next bit. He said, gesturing to move inside. And then Rick says, shall we what? Shall we what? Look at the flat. And then Harry says, look at the flat there. And then Rick says, oh, fuck, yeah. Oh, fuck, yeah. Sorry, it's this way. Clearly, Rick stammered. All the anxiety about living with a complete stranger dissipated as Rick led the way up the stairs, smiling to himself. Bradley Goodfellow, the famous comic. Not famous, of course, or Netflix famous, circuit famous, which was way cooler to Rick. I'm Rick, by the way, he said as he climbed the stairs, turning back to make sure Harry was following. That's a relief, or you'd have been wondering what the fuck I was doing here. There we go. Right, how much have we got here? 2 minutes 13. I think that's more than enough for us to be editing with in the next video. So we'll park that there and we'll just treat that as the end of our chapter. So what I would do now, I would just click just past the end of the chapter, put a marker in and put chapter 2 in there. I'll just put the number 2 in there and then I'll just double click on my track and call that track 2. And then everything we record from now on will be chapter 2. And if I wanted to refer back to Harry or Rick before I get started, or I'm doing this in a new session, I'd just grab Harry, plonk that in there, just have a little listen. Rick leapt back and banged his head on. And then I know what they all sound like. So yeah, that's my little crash course in recording. So I hope that's useful for you and will speed up your workflow somewhat. In the next video, I'll show you how to edit all this stuff. And then after that, I'll show you how to master it. So don't forget to like and subscribe and ring the bell icon, and then that'll let you know when there's new videos being uploaded. And if you want to join my Patreon, the link's up on the screen there. It's got loads of stuff like templates and little dummy sessions you can play around with, plus handy PDFs. And I upload pretty much everything I do on here there for you to sort of mess around with. I'll upload this one as well for you so you can have a little faff around with this, editing it. So yeah, like I said, in the next video, we'll be editing this. So I will catch you then.